Let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Geeky Gator, who writes, "Hey, John and gang. After this whole shutdown, it looks like a lot of theaters are going to be shut down permanently, which reduces the amount of available screenings for future films. Looking at how massive Endgame's record-breaking opening weekend and final gross was, do you think this may never be broken? Especially if the future involves more streaming." All right, thanks for sending that in, Geeky Gator. And yes, that's a huge question right now. It's a massive question right now, because we right now are living in a situation, we're living in an environment right now where, yes, the theaters are closed. Now, we've talked about this a bit before, but let me set it up again here just for the context of this conversation. You know, for months, I've been very optimistic that the theaters will get open in time to play some catalog movies to get people back into the habit a little bit of coming back to the movies, and then Tenet's going to open. And then once Tenet's open, and hopefully it can make a little bit of money, then the next big film will come out, Wonder Woman, Black Widow, things like that, and then we will be on the road to recovery as far as the movie theater and the movie industry itself goes. But while Tenet has come out, and it's, I think today it crosses 300 million at the box office. Hey, and at the age of a pandemic with all the theaters having been closed for almost 6 months, that's not terrible. It is terrible under normal circumstances, but I contend that that's not terrible. But the problem we now face is the fact that all these movies that were supposed to follow up, all of these movies that were supposed to come after Tenet, all of these movies, these bigger movies that were supposed to come and keep the momentum going after Tenet, they've all moved. Wonder Woman 84 moved. Black Widow's officially moved. As of right now, they're still saying Soul is going to come out. I have my doubts that Soul is actually going to come out. They're still saying it will, and maybe they're right. Maybe it will, but I have my doubts right now. It's created an environment where one of the head guys at the National Association of Theater Owners, which kind of represents all the theaters, has come out and said, yeah, we're probably going to see a bunch of movie theaters close down again. Because without new movies, without big new movies to draw in the audiences, it costs more money to be open than it is to be closed. And so we're going to be right back to square one again. Going right back to square one again, as you pointed out in your email, means that a lot of movie theaters which were already precariously close to the edge of going out of business are going to be going over the edge. They're going to be going over the edge, and they're going to go out of business. I mean, as a matter of fact, China already reported something like 40% of their theater chains are going to be closed by the end of the year. Not just closed temporarily, but out of business. We've been talking a lot about the trials and tribulations of AMC theaters. They're in a lot of trouble. But now it's no longer just AMC theaters. Now it's Regal too. It's Cineworld. It's Cinemark. It's Landmark. There's a lot of theaters. So we are now getting precariously close. So not only are we're going to have to reset that whole winding everything back up again. Forget it. It was all for naught. Everything's going to be set back to zero again. And on top of that, a lot of theaters are going to be in a lot more trouble than they were before, and some of them aren't going to come back at all. We could be looking quite literally at a theatrical apocalypse. We could be seeing, now honestly, I thought before, and I completely believe I was right. I completely thought that the movie theater industry will completely be fine, provided things go the way we think they're going to go. You know, as we get into September, some theaters will open back up. They'll play some catalog films, and then Tenet will come out, and then Wonder Woman come out, and not everything will go back to normal right away, but we'll get there, right? That belief that I had for the longest time is completely facing new challenges now. Now, I don't know that I believe that anymore. I don't know that I believe that the theatrical side of things can survive this. And if the theatrical side doesn't survive it, it's going to change the movie studio system forever. It's going to change it forever. You think we're going to get 10 to 15, 150 million to 200 something on $1 million huge tentpole blockbusters a year anymore without the movie theaters? Nope. Say goodbye to those days. Bye-bye. We're not going to get those types of movies anymore. At least not in the level and in the quantity that we've been getting accustomed over the last decade in getting them. It's just not going to be like that anymore because without the theaters there's not enough money. There's just not enough money available, certainly not through streaming. The money ain't there through streaming. The real money is in the theaters. So with all that context, what does that mean for things like box office records? Well, it changes things, right? It changes things. It changes the fundamentals of the question. Because it's one thing to say, hey, could Endgame's opening weekend box office record ever be broken? Under normal circumstances, the answer to any question that has the word ever or could is always yes. Yes. Ever? Yeah, someday that opening weekend box office record will be broken. Yes, that could happen someday. Could they make another Dragon Ball Z live action film? Yes, they could. May not be this year, may not be in the next 5 years, but it could happen. And whenever you ask could or ever, the answer is almost always yes. But what happens if the nature of reality changes? Back in the days when a professional sports league had a 40-game season, and you ask, hey, could that guy's, point record stand forever? Well, it could. It could. But what happens when the nature of the reality changes? Now sports leagues have 80-game seasons, 90-game seasons, 160-game seasons. Suddenly now that could completely changes. That ever completely changes because the nature of the reality of the context has completely changed. So 6 months ago, could movies like Avatar and Endgame get their box office records broken? Absolutely. Ever? Yeah, it may not be in the next 5 years, may not be in the next 10 years, but ever? Absolutely. But what if there's no movie theaters around? Or what if there's only half of the amount of movie theaters around anymore? Suddenly, that could or ever question is irrelevant because the nature of the reality of the context is completely changed. Yeah, in a world where there's a whole ton of these healthy theater chains operating, there's 7,000 screens across America that are selling out tickets and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, in that environment, in that reality, yes, those records are going to be broken. Eventually, somehow, some way, someday. But if the nature of that reality changes, and we no longer have 30% of the theaters, and we no longer have 40% of the screens, then I don't know. Like, honestly, right now, and I'm going to make a Thoughts on Walks about this fairly soon, but we are on the precipice, possibly, of a complete systemic paradigm shift in the entertainment industry as a whole. It's going to change everything. And there's a lot of blissfully ignorant people. And when I say we all live in blissful ignorance once in a while, like it's great not to be aware of some things. And I think there's a lot of film fans right now who are just blissfully ignorant of the fact that they just think, oh, well, if the theaters aren't there, then we'll still get all the same movies and we'll still get all that. It'll just be on streaming. No, it won't. No, it won't. Rothman over at Sony gave a great explanation about that. It's just not. It's going to change everything. It's going to change everything in ways we can't even predict right now. And I'm not going to lie to you, that scares me. It does. As somebody who's a lifelong film fan, that scares me. I mean, I've got a whole diatribe to go on about how terrified I am just of losing the theatrical experience. Like, movies are great on any screen. It doesn't matter if it's on my computer screen, on my 75-inch television downstairs with my surround sound speakers, whether it's on my phone. Movies are great. But none of that stuff comes close to the actual theatrical experience. Nothing comes close. Nothing. Nothing comes like within a whiff of an actual theatrical experience. That experience of actually making an event out of it, getting together with your significant other or friends or family, heading out for the evening, going into this theater with hundreds of other film fans there to watch a movie where we cry and cheer and gasp and jump scare and whatever all together. It just on this massive, real large screen, not your piddly little 75-inch TV nonsense, but a real big screen. And, you know, not just doing what you do every fucking night, sitting at home on my couch, oh, this is great. No, like actually getting out and going out with friends and making a night out of it. Just everything about the theatrical experience. The notion of losing that, it breaks my heart, guys. It breaks my heart. And I've never wanted to believe it, but I'm starting to think we might be heading there sooner than I thought. And I wouldn't feel that way if Wonder Woman hadn't moved. If Black Widow hadn't moved, I wouldn't feel that way, but I do now. And so, yes, getting back to the fundamental question of, are we ever going to see Avatar's 10 years as the number one film at the box office of all time get that record broken? I don't know that we ever will now. Will we see that current mark set by Avengers Endgame ever get beat? I don't know that we ever will now. Will we see that all-time North American domestic box office record that's held by Star Wars: The Force Awakens? Will we ever see that beat? I don't know that we ever will now. I think these records may be the last bunch that we get, and I hope not. I hope not. I hope we see this big turnaround. I hope we see this big recovery. I hope we have better days ahead. But as a film fan, I'm nervous. I'm really nervous. And I'm sure you guys are feeling that too. And the longer this goes on, the more and more question marks that pop up, right? Like every day that passes, it just creates more questions. So it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of all evolves. And can the industry be more resilient than I'm giving it credit for? Can this studio theatrical industry that has been in place for longer than I or my parents or my grandparents have been alive, can it be more resilient than the current challenges we're facing? Maybe. I hope so. But I'm getting pessimistic. Question is, guys, what do you think? Now, obviously, all other things being equal, yes, we'll see these box office records eventually beaten at some point. But not all things are equal, and we might be in a time where the paradigm has shifted. Do you think we're going to see these big box office records now broken? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys.